Oh, great to see people coming through and joining us today for our final Maggolee webinar for 2023. Oh, it's great to see that we have people joining us from many parts of the state today and from many organisations. We'll take a moment while people filter in and shuffle in. We have close to 100 people joining us from local councils around the state today. So we are very much looking forward to today's conversation. For those of you who have joined us, please feel free as we head in towards our acknowledgement shortly, just to pop in our chat today, which country you're meeting with us on today. That would be lovely if you can do that. For those of you who I haven't met before, Nicole Findlay is my name, and I'm the CEO from Reconciliation Victoria. Very, very privileged to be sitting in this leadership role. Thank you for joining us from Wurundjeri country. Thank you. Getting nice little messages coming through now. Thank you so much. Let's open up today. I'm going to be mindful of everybody's time today. So we'll open today's webinar by respectfully acknowledging all the many lands that we are meeting on today and paying our respect to traditional owners. And I'm meeting with you on the lands of the mighty Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples. And I feel very, very privileged to be walking in partnership with elders, past, present and emerging, and I'd like to acknowledge all the First Peoples who are meeting with us today and the reconciliation champions. Let's acknowledge that we are all meeting on lands where sovereignty has never been ceded, and that there is continuing connection to lands, waters, skies, community, nice and strong. And we are so privileged to be walking in partnership with First Peoples. I'd like to also acknowledge some of the executives and dignitaries who are meeting with us today in today's webinar. Uncle Charles Parkiner from the Victorian Aboriginal News Team is meeting with us today. Thank you very much. I saw you on our list today. Say good day in the chat if you're here with us. Also like to just also say hello to I believe we've got Councillor Peter Costello with us today as well. So thank you for joining us from Banyule City Council, Castaldo. I've got to get that right. I keep getting that wrong. Anyway, so good to have you company. As you know, we'll be talking through a very, very important topic today, which is on the forefront, I think, of many councils' conversations at the moment. Right at the forefront, we are thinking about what Jan 26 is going to look like for many of our councils and many of our communities across the state in the post-referendum landscape. So this is a really important conversation that we are going to tackle today. And I don't use that word lightly, tackle, because it is a conversation that comes with complexities. And as we head into this period of time, it is going to be time for our councils to be thinking about our strong partnerships with traditional owners and all First Peoples in our municipalities and shires, about how we're going to develop strategies that are safe and inviting for all and that are reflective and also acknowledge the truth. So most importantly, so today's webinar, we will be joined by some wonderful panelists and speakers, guest speakers. We'll be speaking to Jacinta Chaplin. She's joining us from Swan Hill Rural City Council. And we also have another regional council with Rochelle Smith joining us from Surf Coast City Council. And we've got Deputy Mayor Mike Scott joining us from Stonnington City Council. So I'm really looking forward to diving into a conversation with them very soon. And we'll also be sharing some Maggolee updates with you. Today's webinar is interactive. We are really wanting to know where your councils are respectfully at in your Jan 26 conversations. So we've got the Mentimeter QR code here. Please log it into your phone so we can find out where your councils are at. We really like to be able to provide a really good picture on Maggolee of where councils are in their Jan 26 journey on Maggolee. Also, I'd just like to respectfully acknowledge Local Government Victoria, our funders, and our important partners who we work with and support our Maggolee activities, and they're joining us in today's webinar as well. So we'll head along and give you some Maggolee updates, and also we'll ask before we head into those updates, now that you've put in your code and you're actually able to tell us. We're seeing your responses come through now. That's excellent on whether your council is considering holding Jan 26 events or not. Please put your responses in there for us. And as you can see, we're actually seeing that there is events taking place. That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing those. Just as we move into our next slide, I've got Poppy, my team working with us in the background today is Poppy and Alex and Emily. So feel free to reach out and put anything you like in the chat today, any questions, and we'll try and respond to you today with some answers there. In terms of the referendum result, I think many of us are wanting to know where communities are at, regional and in metropolitan areas across the state. You really want to know, has the council, has the result made conversations and planning easier or harder for your councils? So, and it's absolutely okay to give us that transparency. If you're not sure, please put it in there. That's brilliant. Just let us know where you're at. Excellent. Thanks, Poppy. All right, we'll head across to our next slide. Feel free to keep entering your responses as we move along. In today's updates, for those of you who may not have kind of been familiar with Maggolee over the years, we just always like to do a refresh and let you know that Maggolee, the word, is a Woiwurrung word. It means here in this place. Here in this place, we've been coming together online since 2010 to be sharing best practice in local government, and we also share knowledge and resources. We share our strategies, our reconciliation strategies. We share what's happening in our policy landscape. We share information about the strong partnerships that are unfolding in the local government space. We share information about the traditional owners who your councils operate on. There's an abundance of information there, but there'll always be a need for more information, and we rely on local governments across the state to continue to share information with us to make Maggolee as rich as possible and beneficial for all of us. So please keep continuing to share materials and updating your own respective Maggolee pages. So each of you have an individual website page for your council on Maggolee. It might need a refresh. You might not have put anything up there for a long time. So please have a dig around in Maggolee, find your page, update it. Our Maggolee Projects Officer, Claire Hyatt, probably has reached out to you over the past year quite a bit. Claire can update your pages and put any other updates on Maggolee. So please reach out to her. And also one of the things we're really proud about at RecVic, as we've been proudly supporting the Victorian Aboriginal and Local Government Strategy, which will be effective and in place up until 2026. And we're strongly supporting the implementation of this strategy, which represents 5 years self-determination local action plans between traditional owners and all First Peoples in municipalities and shires across Victoria. A unique Victorian strategy. No other state in the country has a progressive local government strategy like this. As we've been appointed, Reconciliation Victoria, as the Secretariat for the Victorian Aboriginal and Local Government Strategic Working Group, we are very, very proud to be to take up this appointment. And just recently, we had our second meeting on Wadawurrung country in Ballarat. I know we are being joined by City of Ballarat representatives today, and I just want to say a very special thank you to Lenka, who supported us, who's the Aboriginal officer at Ballarat. We want to thank her for the support and for hosting us out on Wadawurrung country, and to Beck Devlin for the wonderful welcome from Wadawurrung Co-op for for supporting us on that day. Just in terms of the function of the VELG Strategic Working Group, what function and what purpose does this working group serve? It's made up of First Nations leaders who are sitting at the table there and sitting with the peak local government authorities. All peaks are sitting on this working group, which makes it a very, very powerful working group, and also a group that's going to have a strong purpose in overseeing the implementation of the VELG strategy. So as you can see, the key functions are up there. One of the things strongly that we're already seeing in the second meeting of the VELG Strategic Working Group is that there is absolutely an interest and a commitment to wanting to ensure that we are understanding the progress that councils are making in terms of interest in VELG's, awareness about the strategy, and also what councils are doing to support the implementation of VELG. So getting familiar with the 7 pillars, the self-determination principles within the strategy, they're 2 key really important things. And if we think about January 26, really the first 2 key pillars out of the 7 VELG's pillars are culture, respect and trust, awareness and engagement. And these are squarely aligned with Jan 26. So we're really, if we delve into those key pillars and how they work in the relationships that we're establishing and developing with traditional owners and First Peoples in our municipality, we start to really see the benefits of how we can navigate Jan 26 conversations more safely when we have those conversations together. So we'll head along to our next slide if we can, and just a further update about where some activities that RecVic has underway. We've got our joint AGM, which we're having with Antar Victoria. Many of you will be familiar with Antar Victoria's work. They also have a 25, 30-year history in the Victorian reconciliation landscape. Guest speakers will be holding that event this Saturday, 2nd of December. You are most welcome to come. If you want to travel in, please just let us know. We've been working for some time with Moonee Valley City Council, supporting their reconciliation journey, and they've brought us into their space at the Jering Flemington Hub. So we're very, very thankful to Moonee Valley City Council for allowing us to use that space for our AGM. We'll have guest speakers in there. Uncle Richard Franklin, many of you will know, he's a very strong leader, Aboriginal community leader, artist and advocate who's been around for many years. Written amazing books, and also Professor Andrew Gunston, who is our co-chair at Reconciliation Victoria and leads the National Reconciliation Truth and Justice Centre for Federation Uni, and also Sean Middlebrook at Urich Justice Commission. And we're yet to hear who's joining us from First Peoples Assembly. So it's bound to be a really amazing conversation off the back of the referendum. We are absolutely prepared to ask the question and ready to ask the question, where to from here for the reconciliation movement. More importantly, most importantly, coming out of the referendum, the key thing that we want to do as an organisation at Reconciliation Victoria is to ensure that First Peoples lead the next chapters for reconciliation, our next 5-year chapters for Reconciliation Victoria, as we embark on the development of our next 5-year strategic plan. We are going to be partnering strongly with all First Peoples across the state in leadership roles and traditional owners and peak organisations to help let us know what they want reconciliation to look like for the next 5 years in Victoria. So exciting times ahead. Please come and join us for the AGM if you have the time on Saturday. We won't be streaming online, but we may be distributing material out of the event for you. So we'll head on to, and I'm just being conscious of time today. So we will head into our conversation now, an important conversation. As I've mentioned, we're going to be joined by Swan Hill City Council, Stonnington City Council and Surf Coast Shire in respect to the strategies that they've put in place with us today, in place for Jan 26. Looks like we've got a little technical glitch on the screen at the moment. That's okay. Beautiful. Just a little bit of background here. As we headed up to Swan Hill for one of our voice events, and we were very fortunate to meet Jacinta Chaplin at the time, who has a First Nations Community Development Officer role. And Jacinta also holds a role at the First Peoples Assembly she's the Northwest Regional Representative with First Peoples Assembly. She's a Waddy Wamba Wamba woman, and we had the good fortune of meeting Jacinta at our voice event. And Jacinta mentioned to us at that time that the Swan Hill Rural City Council had just recently passed motions to no longer take part in Australia Day celebrations. So we're joined by Jacinta today, and we'll dig into that conversation with Jacinta shortly. And as mentioned, Deputy Mayor Councillor Mike Scott is joining us from Stonnington City Council, and Rochelle Smith, First Nations Engagement Advisor. So we might welcome them all onto the screen now as we venture in to have our conversation. Now, hopefully our technology is, excellent. It's all working for us. Brilliant. And I think we've got Jacinta with us as well. Just waiting for Jacinta to come through. Perfect. Brilliant. Jacinta, you're on mute. Excellent. You're coming in. I'm just going to jump in straight away if I can. Thank you all for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedules. Jacinta, if I could because we've gone in and we've given a little bit of background in regards to Swan Hill's actions to no longer take part in Australia Day celebrations, can you perhaps talk about this decision and how Council reached that? And just a very warm hello today to you as well.
Hello. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Waddy and Wamba country. I'm a proud Waddy Wamba Wamba woman myself. So I'm very fortunate to be living here and have connections to both sides. Swan Hill Council is still celebrating the Australia Day events, but they're hosting them on the 25th of January. And then hosting the Survival Revival Day on the 26th. So I've been working for Council for, I think this is my 4th year now. And a couple of years ago, the CEO at the time, I didn't realise who he was because I was still getting to know the processes around Council and who everybody was. And as anybody, and like any Aboriginal employed person in any position, when these subjects come up, a lot of people approach you for your advice and for your opinions about different things. So they came into my office and asked my opinion, and then they all walked away. So I thought that was a breaking moment then, like, oh, they're actually listening, they've taken my opinion on board, and nothing came of it. So I was a little bit disheartened, and then when it got closer to the 26th, they said, oh, can you get somebody to do a welcome? So I approached a community member who's a very strong person within herself. She done a welcome and she got a lot of backlash. And I felt that her welcome was very inclusive and very much straight to the point. So the following year, which was last year, they'd asked for somebody to do a welcome, and in one respect, I was very grateful for the welcome that happened, but at the same time, my belly nearly sunk because I did ask my mother to do the welcome for me. And my mum, if anybody has ever met her, you won't ever forget her. She's very straight to the point. So I would use a lot of, and in the back of my mind when she done her welcome, I was thinking, oh, bugger me, I've got to go to work on Monday. And it's, she said things in a respectful way, but very much truthful, which I love and appreciate her. So then conversations happened after that. And when it came to sort of the middle of the year, the start of this year, there was conversations about what's going to happen for the 26th of January, I said, hang on, you know, I'm employed within council to bridge the gaps and break down those barriers. You've asked me for my advice. You've got to take it on board as well. So talking within my unit, which is a really great unit, we've done some amazing projects together. We approached council to have the discussion, and it sort of went on from there. So I used a lot of local history and a lot of local stories, so that it wasn't just a big picture thing. It was more localised to Swan Hill, to people that everybody that was sitting around the chamber actually knew.
And so then they reached the decision and said, right, we're going to formally pass it. And I mean, that must have been an amazing feeling for yourself, your family, and, you know, extended community when that decision was passed.
Yeah, so the decision was passed in September, just before the referendum. So it was sort of, I was really happy and excited that council came to that before we got the results of the referendum. Then I started getting anxious because I was thinking the backlash that was coming through, and, you know, when you look too far into the results of who voted what in which region, you sort of get that, you know, feeling in the bottom of your guts that this is not going to go great. So it was really hard for council to take on from me to say, hold off from your media releases. I don't want to blur the lines with the referendum. I don't want to get people's backs up, because that's not what this is about. This is about, because a part of the Australia Day celebrations on the 25th, we're also embedding some Aboriginal practices, cultural practices in that event as well. And I said, I don't want to get people's back up to where we're going to get a bad response from this. This is about embedding Aboriginal cultural practices in everyday processes. So we will be doing a media release Thursday to work towards the positive side of that.
And how are you feeling about that communication going out? Has there been any backlash at all? Has anyone got wind of anything, or are you sort of feeling that, no, we're ready to have this conversation and we're ready to put this comms out?
I feel ready now. I haven't felt ready before now to actually do it, because I just didn't feel like we're going to get a good response. The local paper has done a couple of little articles, and, you know, you get that all on the social medias as well, and there's been good responses alongside of that. So that's been really positive. I think some people feel that it's very, there's still a division. But from this year, all of this year, throughout the ceremonies that happened on the 26th, that previously, and with the citizenship ceremonies that happened throughout the year, we've also been influencing that process. So when the citizens come and get their certificate and do their pledge, we've been handing them a plant, a native plant. So because they've come here to plant their roots, we give them a plant as a symbol of that.
Yeah.
And also giving them an acknowledgement that they can also reflect back on later. That's been received really well. A lot of the council workers and management will come along and join in that alongside of the New Australians and our team. So I think that sort of eased it off a lot, to say, you know, we're not here to cause any conflict or any more division. This isn't about blame. This is about us being in the same community, in the same town, embracing each other and both sides of the community.
Yeah.
All sides.
All sides. And, you know, just Jacinta, just for many people might have joined us for our last webinar, and we talked about, you know, new and emerging communities in that reconciliation conference conversation, and we had the Roads to Reconciliation pathway program organisers in with us, and, you know, and that's what really sort of, I guess when we were in Swan Hill, that's what really stood out to me. You really do have a diverse community up there, and I love the fact that you've touched on that that healing and togetherness conversation that you're really trying to facilitate in there. And I might we'll come back and I'll ask a couple more questions in a moment. I just wanted to head across to Mike now at Stonnington City Council, because I think we're also in a very diverse neighbourhood in at Stonnington City Council, and I guess they've really taken that kind of healing approach to their events as well. Mike, you held your first healing ceremony in at City of Stonnington in 22. Are you able to talk about this as an annual event, and just share more about the approach that you wanted to take with your event as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nicole. And hi, everyone. I'm here on shared land at the moment, right on the border between Wurundjeri and Bunurong. So I want to pay my respect to elders as well. So we took the decision in 2021, and I think COVID was kind of in the way before that for us to make it sooner. So we decided that from 2022, we would facilitate an opportunity for First Nations to have a healing ceremony. And that kind of came about through our Reconciliation Action Plan, where there was an action there to talk to our local First Nations mob about what they see happening on January 26. It was a little bit complicated because we still hold that ceremony for new Australians on that day. But we decided that we would, if we were going to run the event, we would run it alongside the town hall. So that gave people the opportunity to go to their ceremony, their citizenship ceremony, and then come across to the healing ceremony. So they similar to Jacinta, they receive a plant on the day of their citizenship. Then coming across to the healing ceremony, they get to see and hear more about what happens with regard to First Nations people.
Yeah.
So it's pretty significant, I suppose, that they're able to do that. The day itself is it's an interesting day because we've got that recognition of citizenship, and then we move into that healing space. I also go to the City of Port Phillip's Morning of Mourning that they have at dawn. So for me, it's a bit of a roller coaster. So I can only imagine what it's like for First Nations people on that day. But our event, the healing ceremony, is exactly that. It's where our Wurundjeri elders talk to people who choose to come along. In 2022, we had, I think, 250 people turn up in a blistering hot day to listen to stories and understand what truth telling is all about, so that we could together heal. That was the significant theme that Arnie Dye was sharing with us, that we all need to heal, so let's heal together.
Yeah, and look, you touched on some really important points there, Mike, and it's particularly in relation to place, the location of the place, and and more and more council locations we're going to, it is seeming more fitting where council workers will say, we don't want to be sitting necessarily in a colonised a space that feels very colonised when we're having these conversations, and so and colonial in that you've moved it out of the town hall space and put it side by side in a different location. I want to come across to Rochelle in the conversation here, because Surf Coast Shire has taken a totally different location approach again. And really have headed to the beaches where they're located, but have established a partnership, a strong partnership with Wadawurrung traditional owners to develop an alternative event as well, which really does touch on the truth-telling elements as well. So welcome, Rochelle. It'd be great to hear more about your events that you introduced back in 21 as well.
Thanks very much, Nicole. I'd like to also acknowledge that I'm joining you from Wadawurrung country, and Surf Coast Shire worked with Wadawurrung traditional owners on this particular event. We also work with Eastern Maar traditional owners as well on Surf Coast Shire. But with this particular event, we did some community engagement with First Nations people and made a commitment to reconciliation in 2021. Commitment to enact a Reconciliation Action Plan, which actually our first Reconciliation Action Plan goes to Council tonight. So that's been quite a process for us. But the appetite for acknowledging the traditional owners and working with traditional owners to take steps to acknowledge the 26th of January was established back in 2021 through council. And then we took that approach to talk with traditional owners about how they might like to acknowledge that date. And the appetite for having an event happened, the first event, Pilkparin, happened in January 26th this year. So that was our first truth-telling event, and it was very much 100% led by Wadawurrung traditional owners. That's been a very important part of this event. So Surf Coast Shire Council supports Wadawurrung traditional owners to put this event on, but it is not a protest. It's the traditional owners being able to do something that they feel on their country that is a culturally appropriate way to acknowledge it. And it was an amazing event. We had it. Pilkparin means sunrise in Wadawurrung language, so it took place at Cozy Corner Beach, and magnificent location, but rather challenging space when you're arriving with people in the dark. But we, it was really successful, and we listened to elders engage in truth telling. And we expected when we initially, we didn't advertise it widely, but we did promote the event, and Wadawurrung traditional owners promoted the event, as did Surf Coast Shire. We expected initially with our conversations to maybe attract a couple of hundred people. We thought perhaps we might get 500 people attend on the day. We got more than 2,000 people attended that event, and I think that really illustrates that the community were really hungry for an opportunity to listen to truth telling, and as a way to acknowledge that date differently to the way we had in the past.
Yeah, that's an amazing turnout, 2,000, and it's a sunrise event. So I guess it is really about that dawn service. Can you talk about, Rochelle, how the truth telling comes through in that event and how it's presented by in partnership with the traditional owners?
So it's been a really fascinating and heartwarming collaboration to be part of. We're really in terms of working with the traditional owners, I can't stress enough that we're being completely led by what the traditional owners are wanting in terms of the presentation, in terms of the communications around it. Our communications team's working really closely, and essentially it's what would you like to put on, and we enabled that to happen, and the goal is to hear those First Nations voices. The people gathered on the 26th of January earlier this year. It happened to be misty rain. It was very dark when we started. The sun didn't show its face. It was cloudy. It didn't matter. The atmosphere was amazing, and we listened to different elders and different representatives of Wadawurrung traditional owners speaking about the history of Wadawurrung country and what had happened to Wadawurrung people as a result of colonisation. However, it was a very hopeful, very solemn but positive. There was no blame, and it was just really about truth telling, and people, while people were sitting and watching, they weren't really watching, they were really listening. It was actually amazing to see. People were truly listening, and it wasn't about a visual spectacle. So yeah.
Thanks, Rochelle. And I'm going to come across now, Jacinta, if I can ask you about, because I think there's that real, and what's potentially on that Jan 25th when your council activities take place for the first time together, we're going to be seeing this meshing of truth telling with, I guess, this kind of narrative that's come out from 1994 only, when that it is, deemed a day of celebration for some of the population, and then I guess for the vast majority who are really supporting, the 40% of all the yes voters that we're supportive of this truth-telling component of our history. How are you proposing to navigate this in at Swan Hill, that meshing of ideologies that that differ in our community?
A few of the things that will be happening on the 25th will be that when they do the Australia Day Awards, you volunteer and all that sort of stuff. I've actually got the elders group that's going to be making a gift that also goes along with that. And then you have your school kids who get their acknowledgement. So alongside of that, every child that's going to get that acknowledgement also gets the exposure of an Aboriginal practice when they receive their nominations, along with the Aboriginal component. And then, like with the First Nation, the new Australians that come along, the same process will happen for them. So with the new Australians, they normally do their pledge and then receive their certificate and sing the anthem. Council's also going to be getting the band that sings the anthem to also sing. I don't know if you know Uncle Kutch's first new anthem, future anthem song. The words are very powerful, so we're going to have that also play.
Yeah.
A few years ago, for NAIDOC, I had the Swan Hill Rural City Council, the hospital, the Aboriginal org that's here, the Madas, Mallee District Aboriginal Services, and the Harmony Group sing a verse each of that anthem and made it into a video. So people have already had exposure to the wording, the anthem, and what it means for everybody in the community. So this is just another way to embed that into this process. And with the Survival Revival Day on the 26th, we'll be doing a sunset ceremony. So our events will be run in the afternoon. Because we have so many small towns, they'll still do their morning teas and everything else on the 26th, but it gives them the opportunity to come and stand with us in that afternoon. And we'll be doing the sunset ceremony to end the day.
It's it's such a beautiful approach, Jacinta, and hats off to you and community for really coming around council in this way to propose those ideas. And and I'm sure that we can all say that I'm sure council is feeling really pleased to be able to have somebody like yourself in that role to be proposing those ideas, but it is that trust and for building that trust with community and council to allow that kind of process to come together and those ideas to come together. It sounds like a wonderful new approach, and I liked what you used, that term survival and revival, because the revitalization of language, well, not the revitalization, but it's being embedded in their language, and culture is being brought very much into the ceremony. So
one of the main events on the 26th will be that we are creating a community possum skin. So the possum skin will be for anybody who comes along on the day can add a symbol or a saying or something to that, and the possum skin will be used for council ceremonies. And along with that will be a didge, so that community can understand what the didge is, that it's only a men's item, what it's actually used for, and a message stick as well.
Yeah.
These are items that council can use in their everyday practices and part of all their ceremonies. And it's true symbolism of both cultures.
Yeah. Thanks. And we've got a couple of people asking about Uncle Kutch's song in there. So we'll put that link up and I'm curious, we'll head along. Thank you, Jacinta, for sharing that. I'm going to fishtail back to you shortly, but I just want to ask, jump in with Mike as well and ask about, I guess the complexities of also being on council operating across Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung and Bunurong country. So I'm curious to know how you're kind of navigating, dual traditional owners on your councils, where your council's operating, and how are you bringing that aspect? Are you drawing attention to that in your ceremony as well?
So the ceremony takes place on Wurundjeri land. So we sought advice from elders of both Bunurong and Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri, and they said because it's on Wurundjeri, it's best that Wurundjeri facilitate that event. But whenever we are in the very little corner of Stonnington, which is the suburbs of Windsor and a little bit of Paran, that's Bunurong Boonwurrung, we'll always connect with the elders there and talk to them about the events that we have there, especially around smoking ceremonies, that sort of thing, welcome to country. But there's been a lot of challenges that we're faced with regard to the event, because January 26 across our community, and you mentioned before, Nicole, that it's a diverse community. It's probably one of the most diverse communities, I think, in Melbourne. We've got local community, we've got people on council, we've got First Nations community who all have different perspectives around what January 26 represents, whether it's an invasion day, a healing day, a survival day, day of celebration, or a day of reflection. So trying to balance all of that is a little bit difficult. It's really important that we do listen to people and understand what it is that they want to say. But one of the, I suppose, one of the biggest interesting challenges that we had was that we found some funding back in 2023, this year, to support the healing ceremony. And it came from the Aboriginal heritage. The funding was to acknowledge Aboriginal heritage. So we applied for the grant and we were successful. It was $24,000, which goes a long way. And we put that towards equipment hire, performance fees, and some cultural elements. But one of the conditions on the grant said that we had to promote and co-brand the event with the Australia Day theme of it being reflect, respect, and celebrate. And that's probably a little bit contentious. So our Wurundjeri elders weren't happy with that. So we handed back the money and council paid for it out of its own pocket. So yeah, some challenges around that. And then also, you're always going to get people who have a perspective on what they thought of the event. So we got some really good positive feedback from our local community who really saw the day as an opportunity to learn and listen and participate. I remember in 2022 there was a performance, and the performers encouraged everyone in the community to get up and join in. So there were a lot of young people running around and dancing, and that was really nice to see. But then, of course, the media grab hold of it, and it's another cost to council, and all of the things that they want to say that they can say, they did say, but we didn't focus on that. We really did focus on the fact that in 2022, we had 250 people come, 2023, over 350 people came along. So we can see that our community not only want this, but they're telling their friends and their families about it and getting them to come along too.
Yeah. But there's that integrity piece and that trust building piece with the traditional owners that you stood your ground and said, we won't, in respect of our partnerships and the trust that we are establishing with traditional owners and the respect for truth telling, we're not going to take that sum of money because it doesn't align with our reconciliation journey. And so, hats off to Stonington for doing that. And I think, I guess as we head into next year's that real important time where we're heading towards treaty negotiations, in the new year as well. And Jacinta, you're going to play a key role in this also with your two hats on, with your council hat on and your First Peoples Assembly. And I think, as we head towards that time, and then also later in the year, those local government elections, I guess, Mike, being in that councillor role, do you think that some councillors are swayed by the types of criticisms that they might get for taking a stance, or, you know, basically putting truth-telling in place of money, if you like?
Some might question it, but I think the general consensus is that we need to absolutely walk the talk and respect what our elders have to say and follow their instruction when it comes to this ceremony. So I think, you know, the appetite across council is to continue on. Definitely our community are saying they want it, and they want more of this opportunity. They want to understand and they want to listen more. So yeah, it'd be an interesting debate in the council chamber to hear what people have to say. But I think, yeah, I think the community will lead our decision.
And it just enables you to strengthen all your future activities once you, you know, once you align and stand with the traditional owners in these types of, you know, stand strong on what your position is. But I'm just going to sort of make a little break in here just to let you know that RecVic does provide our Jan 26 position statement as well for councils to reach out, and just we've got resources on both Maggolee and our RecVic websites if you require any of those details. I'm going to come back to you, Rochelle, also just in regards to some of the, did you face at Surf Coast, if you've had, you know, 2,000 people that attended, you know, the Jan 26 event that you held, did you find any opposition down that neck of the world that people were saying, no, we still want the Jan 26 celebration element as well? What have you found down there?
Well, I guess that we had the advantage of that council had made the decision not to participate in the celebrations for Australia Day, and you know, of course, there have been some community members who have expressed that's not the way they see things, and I think it's important to note that that Surf Coast Shire Council has First Nations reconciliation as its first theme in its council plan, and having the strength of that foundation to refer to in the decision making and the reasons we've done things, and we've made that commitment, and we can then say we're doing what we said we were going to do. That's important. But of course, you know, there was some criticism, and I think mainly on social media would be the most concerning, when, as I said earlier, we didn't need to heavily promote the event. It was really a sort of a word of mouth, but there were a few social media posts, and they were then you know, shared onto community pages, or local media had promoted the story and put it on their social media, and that was really where it became, yeah, pretty awful. And that was a challenge for us at council to provide, you know, what do we do to support the Wadawurrung people who were feeling that negativity the most. It was difficult for us to hear as well. And people are just awful on social media. I think it's pretty fair to say, more so than other places. And to be honest, we're a bit concerned that post referendum that might look different again in our event that we're planning for the next January 26th.
And let's sort of talk a bit further about that. Jacinta, I'm going to come across to you as well here, because I think, you know, we're going to have a lot of regional councils, much like you know, Swan Hill, who will be, you know, sort of thinking about the referendum and the referendum results, and thinking, you know, how we might not have done this work to the depth of what Swan Hill has, or what any of the others have done. what kind of advice would you give to some of those councils who are trying, some of the council officers or workers are wanting to do this work, but might be feeling like, oh, our constituencies just, that constituents just didn't vote in favour in the referendum, and we're frightened of tackling this piece of work. I mean, what advice would you give them at this time?
Well, it's very different here because they done the result before the referendum. So it sort of cut that discussion out a fair bit. And because we jumped on it straight away to get the funding, and we basically had the events planned out. And because we'd done a lot of the background work also with the citizenship awards, the council could see the benefits before they came to this decision. And some of the things that I'd said to council myself, I said, you know, everybody else sees it as a public holiday and a great time just to go for a long weekend. But I've lived in this town my entire life, and I'm 43 now, and I've never been to an Australia Day event. I didn't even know how they ran or anything. So I said, you know, our 26th was always rolled up around our community. And if like we'd have to talk to the local organisation and say, can we create a space here just for people to be able to come to? And when I said to the councillors, you know, just we weren't getting paid, nothing like that. People would bring a plate of food. We just had a venue where you could come and listen to some music, tell some stories and share some, you know, local things and reconnect with people. We were getting large numbers of people just coming to that. This way, it's going to be council that provides that space for us to come along, and they can also come and be a part of it. And I kept reassuring council, this is not a blame thing. This is not, oh, we'll use a celebrating on our day of mourning. This is about us also being involved in our locals' celebrations on the 25th. Celebrate with our communities, you know, standing up and being able to acknowledge that person who's got Volunteer of the Year or that group or the Australian of the Year. Because how it's been for as long as I can remember is if you knew the person who got those nominations, you had to, like, you'd have to make time after the 26th to go and actually congratulate them and show them that you do care about their recognition that the community's given them. This way we can do it all at once.
Yeah.
Be there and be in the audience and clap and cheer and show that person their support. This year we've also been able to nominate community for some awards.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I'd mentioned to council is how many Aboriginal people have been nominated for awards but would not come and receive it because of the day that you want to celebrate on.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of an eye-opener for them.
Yeah, and I mean, and you've really been able to guide them into the cultural safety element of how to run it safely and inclusively, and not shy away from, you know, doing that inclusion, that absolute you know, to need to do that. And I think, you know, we do need to acknowledge that we, you know, over 6 million people voted yes, and so they voted yes for truth. And I think, you know, we obviously in at Rec Vicar, we are always going to be looking at the things optimistically and think, you know what, and I love the fact that you're bringing the school children in, Jacinta, as well, where we know the highest amount of reconciliation action plans and cultural learning is taking place in our schools and in early learning centres and services. And I love the fact that you're really drawing that safety element again with bringing the young ones in who have no discrimination lens at all. They're embracing it and they want to be part of the truth telling, and they'll, you know, demand it as the years go on. And so it's really, you know, it's really great to see that you've put those strategies in place at Swan Hill and in a regional location. But I just wanted to come across to Mike again and just sort of talk about where you're going for, you know, 2024. Where's council sort of head at the moment? You're on mute.
Someone had to do it. a meeting booked in with Wurundjeri Elders to talk about that. We all know that they're going through their own healing process based on the result of that campaign. So we are very sensitive about wanting to listen to hear what they think the day should look like. In 2023, Council decided to add in a barbecue to the event, which we hadn't done in 2022. There was a bit of uncertainty around that, but it was well received. So whether we continue on with that is another thing. We're not really sure. But yeah, we'll be guided by what our Wurundjeri Elders tell us is right for them, being sensitive.
Well, that's a nice kind of reflection. I'm just mindful of time, so people are going to be starting to jump off from us now. But Rochelle, I'm just wondering if you can kind of part with a final reflection with us as well.
Yeah, my final reflection would be really that we're so pleased that we started this partnership and entered into this event and this collaboration. It has flow-on effects to other work throughout council. So the collaborative way that we've worked with Wadawurrung traditional owners on this particular event has, you know, we're reaping the benefits of that trust that's been built and that collaboration in so many different ways. And yeah, it's very, very positive, and we're really looking forward to the next Piltpirin event on the 26th of January 2024, and we're expecting more people, so wish us luck.
Excellent. I might have to travel down there. And Jacinta, just a final reflection from you today as well, if we can grab that.
For me, myself, seeing how many people it takes to change one event to be inclusive of my whole community, because this isn't just my community. I'm related to majority of the Aboriginal community, or if I'm not related, I've grown up here my whole life knowing them. To see the response back from community, that like one lady said, I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. And it was really great for her. And another lady said, well, you know, I want to get up and I want to tell my story. So I'm actually going to meet with her this afternoon to start the questions and how she's going to be able to tell her story, and if she's going to be comfortable enough to get up on the stage. So we're going to record her in case she doesn't want to get up on the day. But it's since working within council, it's been a lot of reflection from both sides. A lot of people saying, oh, I didn't understand that. I didn't know that that's how it was. And a lot of people coming to me and saying, well, how come this is such a big issue for you? And once you explain it, then they take on that as well. And once you see staff and other networks that you work with, not just saying it to tick a box, they're saying it because they actually feel it and believe it. And you can see that they're embedding it in other parts of their work life. So to me, I've been very grateful to come into this position and to be able to make real changes that is going to benefit community.
Absolutely.
And to have local stories told.
Yeah, most importantly. Thank you for your leadership, Jacinta, and lots of clapping there. And we've got a lot of workers who've stayed with us today, who joined us from many councils, and will have valued your words and wisdom today. And I thank you all very much for your time today, taking time out of your busy schedules. I would also just like to mention that you've really highlighted for us today the importance of Aboriginal leadership and Aboriginal leadership roles in local government, Jacinta. And we will be, as one of our first webinars for 2024, we'll be heading into conversations about Aboriginal employment. So we may well be asking you to come back there. But thank you to everybody who's joined us for today. We did have a final Mentimeter question, which we might not get to, but I would just like to let everybody know who's joined us today. We will be sharing each council's stories today in more detail. We've put together some case studies to share, and we'll distribute that with you post today's webinar, as well as just links to other Jan 26 resources which can help you on your journey. If you are still with us and have a moment to talk about some of the cultural safety strategies that your council might be considering in the lead up to Jan 26, please feel free to put some of those in with us, some of those responses, if we're, because that some of those responses will be very useful for us to have. If we'll just wait to see if people are putting them in. If they're not, I might need to, we may need to sort of assume people are jumping off at the moment. So pop those in. Alex, I'll ask or Poppy to hop across to our next slides. As we've talked about with the case studies, they'll be shared with you today. Thanks, Fiona. Heading across to our next slide, just in relation to keeping an eye on Maggoolee's website. Thank you very much for today, everybody, and look forward to staying in touch with you, Jacinta, Rochelle, and Mike. Thank you very much again. Have a great Tuesday. See you all later.
Thanks, Nicole. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.